So we're going to start with basketball because, as I mentioned, there's not a ton to discuss, but there's a few bits of information that have been coming out over the last couple of weeks since my last episode. First off, if you have not subscribed to the Substack, I did drop the first episode or the first installment of the newcomer breakdowns. I broke down Houston Mallett. Next week we'll have Chris Youngblood, then Aiden Holloway and Cliff Amore, and then we'll get into the freshmen. So there will be a breakdown on all 8 newcomers coming to the team. So if you are interested, please stay tuned for that. Additionally, whenever we have the new assistant hire, my plan is to at least do a little bit of a breakdown on what that coach, what their background is, what they've done well, what Nate Oates is looking to have them bring to the table. So if you are interested in the basketball news, please consider subscribing over to the Substack. So the other information that's come out regarding basketball is there's been a few different things. So one of the bigger things is if you are not following Henry Barrera, that's Alabama strength and conditioning coach, over on Instagram, you really should. He's been posting a bunch of updates as it pertains to the guys coming in, what their bodies are starting to look like. They've actually shaved some weight off of Cliff Amore. They're gaining some weight on Aiden Sherrill and some others. But they did update some of their official roster since the initial release. So the roster updates are Youngblood went from 218 to 223. Amore went from 240 to 250. Jaren's up 5 pounds to 215. Aiden Sherrill is up 15 pounds to 240, which is huge. There was a lot of discussion there on Aiden potentially needing some additional weight, so potentially being up 15 pounds already is absolutely massive. Darian Reed up to 220, and then Houston Mallett up to 200. So I think all of these are really, really big. If those numbers do come to fruition, as anybody that's aware or not aware, some of the official roster things can be a little skewed. Some heights are sometimes juiced. Some weights may not be fully accurate. But if those numbers are close to accurate, then I think that that's something that we really should be looking forward to, especially, Aiden potentially gaining 15 pounds, having an extra 20 pounds on Darian Reed, Mallett being at 200 pounds. I think those are things that are really, really good to see moving forward for this team. Another thing that was announced was the jersey numbers. I'm going to pop them up here on the screen. But the new jersey numbers are Philon's going to be a 0. Aiden Holloway is going to play the 2. Reitzel is going to be 3. Youngblood's going to be 8. Cliff Amore's 11. Aiden Sherrill's 22. Cunningham's 24. Reed's 35. And then Houston Mallett's 95. If 95 is very confusing to you, I will drop a little bit of the information on that. If you read the Substack already, you'll have already known this, but Mallett is 95 kind of on the basis that the thought that a lot of a basketball's player, 95% of their time is going to be played without the ball, and that's something that he really embraces. So the 95 kind of is just his reminder that, a lot of time you're not going to have the ball, and that's completely okay. So, don't be alarmed when you see the 95. There's a reason behind it. Another thing that's come out is there have been a couple of additional games announced. I know when we went through some non-conference schedules, I mentioned that there were going to be some other games coming out. A couple of the games that are coming out are UNC Asheville is going to be probably to open the season on the 4th of November. As well as North Carolina. I did another video about that on December the 4th. Then I mentioned the North Dakota game on the 18th, and then 2 of the other non-conference games are home against Kent State on the 22nd and home against South Dakota State on the 29th. Both of those are new additions, new announcements. I do believe that there's probably one more game left to be announced. I would suspect it's probably going to be another bye game. Early in the season, in between that UNC Asheville and McNeese State game. But just a heads up, that's what we're looking at in terms of basketball. The other piece of information when it comes to basketball that I think is really, really important to note is some comments out of practice. Some people that I know that have, either been to practice or heard the players have said one of the more surprising guys coming in and out of practice has been Philon. that Philon is absolutely putting on a show. Has looked really, really good in summer workouts, and that's great to see. It's not super surprising from a guy that was scoring 35 a game out of Mobile, but when the thought kind of coming into this is that Philon potentially would be the third, point guard. You've got Sears, then Aiden, then Philon. If he is that level of guard where he's going to kind of force you to play him, just the level of Nate Oates' offense and the kind of steps that allows you to take is absolutely massive. I think that's really, really big. There was also a comment by Aiden Holloway potentially about how good Cliff Amori was in regards to some other bigs that he's played against, which some Auburn fans did not love to hear. But either way, the information coming out of practice, everything we've heard has been really, really positive. Sounds like the guys are doing great, and I'm really excited for where this team is to come. So that's kind of the basketball news. Like I said, there's not a ton of news, really just as it relates to rosters, numbers coming out, and then a few additional schedule announcements. As additional stuff comes out, when assistant coach is announced, etc., just stay tuned. I will be putting out some additional episodes. I'm planning to probably do these every other week, just while the news is a little slow. And then as we get closer to season, I'll get back into the 1 to 2 a week, depending upon how games and schedules permit.